Season number 3, episode 6 of the Belleville Sens podcast is here. 4 games down, 68 to go, and the Belleville Senators have points in 3 of those 4 games, coming off a split of the home opener weekend presented by CAA here at CAA Arena, a victory over the Utica Comets to kick off the home slate, and then a tough defeat to the Syracuse Crunch a day or less later, and has the Senators now primed for the first 2 rounds of the Battle of Ontario coming up this weekend. Hi everybody, David Foote and Brock Ormond here on the Belleville Sens podcast. Glad to have you with us as we look back on last week. We get you set for the Battle of Ontario this week, and we'll also hear from head coach Dave Bell, get his mid-season, or midweek I should say, thoughts on how things are going. We'll also introduce you to new B-Sens defenseman Filip Roos. That's all coming up on this week's Belleville Sens podcast. And of course, we are in the Jack Miller Press Box and Media Center, so you'll hear practice going on down below us. And one quick reminder to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Toss us a rating and a review. We would really appreciate that. Belleville Sens certainly appreciated being back on home ice this past weekend. They pick up a win, Brock, as we mentioned, on Saturday night against the Utica Comets. A tougher game on Sunday against Syracuse, which we'll get to in a moment. But just generally, how nice was it to see the boys back in front of the home fans here?
Yeah, it was great, and it was a great start. Well, actually, good start both games against Utica and Syracuse. But the thing is, with the Belleville Sens, is the ending of games and trying to keep the stamina up is going to be crucial. We'll talk about that as it goes along. But yeah, just in general, it was great to see the guys back on home ice, and gave them 2 pretty good efforts overall. And especially the Saturday night was an outstanding atmosphere, almost 3,200 there, and the crowd was into it. The players were into it. The benches were into it. Everybody was excited. And I know walking around the rink with the old headset on, feeling like a football head coach pacing the sidelines. It was you could feel the atmosphere and the energy in the building on the Friday night, as it always should be for a home opener. And the fans certainly that I came in contact with were amped up, ready to go, and it seemed like the players rather really felt fed off of that, and resulted in a great start. A little bit too close for comfort at the end, but they pulled it out, and it was just a great atmosphere all the way around. And it seems like there's people that are still jazzed up and still, having visions of last year's great season and dancing in their heads, and they're hoping that it can continue this season. Yeah,
big kudos as well to all the office staff here at the hockey club, Garrett Harvey and the production team as well, for all the work they had to do to get the home opener off and running. It might not seem like much, but it's one of the biggest and busiest weeks of the year, that leading into the home opener, and then to have to do back-to-back games. It was a long weekend for the staff here as well, so everybody really pumped to be involved and to have things off and running again here at home, and an outstanding job by all those folks as well. Let's talk about that game a little bit. You mentioned the start. It looked like the Belleville Senators were going to win 8-0. By the way they played in the first 20, maybe 30, 35 minutes of the hockey game, they were absolutely flying, jumped out to a 4-0 lead, and then I don't know if it's a case of the comfortability creeps in because the lead is so big, or it's still early in the season, so the legs kind of peter out a little bit as the game goes on. But the Utica Comets, who had only scored, I think, once heading into that game, turned their offense on late. They shrink the lead to 5-4. The Sens hang on. Levi Meralainen earns the win, but a lot closer than maybe it had to be, even though everyone is just pleased to pick up 2 points.
Yeah, 100%. And hearing the fans afterward, they were saying, it was exciting finish, exciting game, but probably shouldn't have been as close as it was. If you ask anybody downstairs, they said that game should have been locked down a lot sooner. But the Sens do find a way to win, and that's the makings of a team that can really push the paces, is when you go up that big and then find a way to get some big stops late, and that's what Levi Meralainen did on Saturday night. And Angus Crookshank getting the game-winning goal, too, which was great to see. And you could see his reaction, too. He was just like staring to the heavens, just saying, thank goodness I finally caught one. Like 3 games or 2 or 3 games feels like an eternity to not score for Angus Crookshank. But he did it, and the Sens, played overall, again, it was a tale of two games like you and Tim Durkin chatted about on Saturday. Sens dominated the first half, and they really did look like a team that was going to go up 7 or 8-0 and just cruise right to the end. But that's why in the AHL you never take a shift off, you never take a period off, because you just never know. Even a Utica Comets team that's now 0-4 because they lost to Toronto on Sunday as well. That's a team that can still play. And like we mentioned on the pod last week, Kevin Dineen, great head coach, coached the women's team, he's coached in the AHL for a few years. He knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to motivate his club, and he did a great job of that. And the players really fed off of that for the Utica Comets. So that's a team that Belleville should not be taking lightly in the remaining portion of the schedule, because they really gave Belleville a good fight. But nice to see the Sens pull out the home opener win. Their fourth consecutive since 2021. They've won on a home opener night, so that's outstanding stuff.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned the atmosphere. Good crowd here for opening night. Tickets are available for this Saturday's game, the first time the Toronto Marlies have been in this building since their season was abruptly ended in overtime in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs last season. Ticketmaster.ca or BellevilleSens.com to check out the box office hours if you'd like to get out to the games here on the weekend, or the game, I should say, Saturday. Sens will be in Toronto on Friday night at Coca-Cola Coliseum to take on the unbeaten Marlies to start the Battle of Ontario. We'll discuss that coming up a little bit later on in the program. So a big Saturday win in the home opener presented by CAA. Sunday afternoon, not the same. Again, short rest. The Syracuse Crunch came in, and they were also playing, I believe, a 3-3 last weekend too. But one of those early season games where the penalty trouble comes along, whether you agree with the refereeing or not, facts are facts, and the Belleville Sens were handed too many penalties on Sunday, and it ended up costing them. Yeah,
and we talked about that as well during the broadcast, about maybe some questionable, shall we say, refereeing, a couple of quite frankly, soft calls that were made for both sides, not just for Belleville, but for both sides. And it all started right away as well, and it seemed like both teams were a little frustrated about that. Belleville actually scored on that first power play thanks to Jeremy Davies, who, by the way, had an outstanding weekend. First 2 goals, first 2 games at home, so you can't ask for much more productive of a weekend than that. And the Belleville Sens, as we said, just too many penalties, and, it is true that Coach Dave Bell and his staff, Stephen Leach and Andrew Campbell, will be making sure that the guys just stay in the good books of the officials. Stay out of the box, stay in the good books, play disciplined hockey like they did for the most part last season. But, again, it's a brand new year, and, again, when you're trying to get early in the season, trying to figure out the referees' tendencies and quirks and everything like that, it can be difficult. And the Sens found that out the hard way on Sunday. And Syracuse pretty much wiped away a great start for Belleville. That's the thing that people forget. Belleville, yes, they lost, but they've had a great first period, I thought. It was by far one of their best, definitely not as productive offensively as it was in the first period of the home opener, but they certainly played really well. And then in the end, it just kind of turned around. And the third period was where Belleville really had the game slip out of their grasp. 4 goals from Syracuse, a couple from Derek Pouliot as well. And that's a guy that, once the Belleville Senators play the Syracuse Crunch again, that's a guy to watch out for. Stanley Cup champ and a guy that's had a lot of experience at the NHL and AHL levels, Derek Pouliot. So he did most of the damage in that third period. And, as we'll talk about here shortly, the injury troubles are starting to mount as well.
Yeah, the Syracuse Crunch, Belleville will have half of its 8-game season series with the Crunch complete by mid-November. They'll be past that halfway point by the end of November. So going to see a lot of the Syracuse Crunch in upcoming weeks. The Utica Comets, not so much. Belleville won't see Utica again until New Year's Eve, when the Comets are back here for an afternoon game. And then that means the second half of the season will be chock full of the Utica Comets and some other opponents. So keep those dates circled. It's always fun when the North Division rivals get together, and certainly the physicality of those division rivalry series is already showing itself. We saw last weekend in Syracuse and in Rochester, really heavy, hard-hitting games. Same for both, I would say, here at CAA Arena last weekend. And, yeah, like you mentioned, Brock, unfortunately, the injury bug is starting to rear its head a little bit here. And the only ones that we really are talking about right now is Wyatt Bongiovanni was hurt in the preseason. We're waiting for him to get back. And then Matt Sogard left the game on Sunday in the early third period and did not return. We haven't had an update yet. We'll talk to head coach Dave Bell on the show in a little bit and hopefully get one from him then. But Levi Merilainen has now been recalled to Ottawa because Linus Ullmark is still not quite back to 100%. So it's the Michael Simpson show at practice this morning, and we're just kind of waiting to see how the organization will juggle the situation that's popped up again real early on here.
Yeah, and that's difficult to kind of stomach because, as we noted, Matt Sogard has been dealing with injuries in the past, and it comes back, rears its ugly head again. And it was just a tough play. He was trying to make a save and then maybe got twisted up a little bit. But Levi Merilainen came off the bench cold, and he did okay, even though Syracuse did pop a couple in by him. But, now the Levy's up. You got Michael Simpson here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Belleville goes on the waiver wire to try and pick up a veteran goaltender. I know Dustin Tokarski was in camp with Ottawa earlier in September, so I wouldn't be shocked if maybe they grab him or somebody else that has experience just to kind of carry them through this down period right now with the likes of Sogard and Merilainen up, or Sogard hurt, Merilainen up in Ottawa. So, it's difficult to stomach for sure. But again, these are the kinds of adversity moments that show the true makings of a champion and the heart of champions. And Belleville Sens early in the season, I mean, you never want to have this happen when your projected starting goalie goes down, your second goalie goes up. But, at this point, it's you got to take the silver linings. It's better to have it happen now than have it happen March and April when you're trying to fight for positioning in the North Division, which is always competitive, as we say every year. So the B-Sens will find a way to get through this, and hopefully it'll be a good fight against the Toronto Marlies on the weekend, because we know they're going to be a difficult opponent, already a 4-0 start. Yeah,
a handful of transactions. We mentioned the goaltenders. Cole Reinhardt went up and down. He is back. Matthew Highmore also reassigned to Belleville from Ottawa this week, so we'll see if he has shaken off the early season knock that he took in the preseason there in Ottawa and could be ready to go for the B-Sens here ahead of a massive, massive weekend against the Toronto Marlies, the top team in the North Division, one of the top teams in the American Hockey League through 5 games. Belleville's provincial rival is unbeaten. We will get some thoughts on how to deal with them coming up later in the show from head coach Dave Bell, but when we return, we will shift to the blue line. We will talk about and introduce you to first-year Belleville Senator Filip Roos. The big defenseman, number 48, will be our guest when we come back. This is episode 6 of season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
More than a game, it's tradition. Show your hometown pride. Let the Belleville Senators hear you cheer.
Here's Tyler Clevin getting in. He scores! Tyler Clevin!
Saturday, October 26th, 7 p.m. Your Sens play the Toronto Marlies, AHL affiliate of the Toronto Maple Leafs, for the Battle of Ontario. It's the Marlies' first visit since Belleville eliminated them from last season's Calder Cup playoffs. Be there for your B-Sens. Full details on ticket options and more at BellevilleSens.com.
Go, Sens, go!
Episode number 6 of season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast continues. You're all caught up on what happened here last weekend as the Sens split their home opener weekend, presented by CAA with the Utica Comets and the Syracuse Crunch. You're a little bit primed for the upcoming Battle of Ontario this weekend, and we'll get you further along in the priming. Later on in the program, we're also going to hear from head coach Dave Bell as we check in with him midweek. We'll get an update on, hopefully some sort of update on Matt Sogard's condition after he left Sunday's game, and we'll get some game planning notes from him in terms of the weekend. But in this segment, we're going to talk about and hear from another one of the new blue liners for the Belleville Sens. That's where the majority of the turnover has kind of come this year. We spoke to Wyatt Wiley last week, who joins the team from the Ontario Reign. Prior to that, Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And now we've got a guy who's only played for one other organization in his North American professional career, and that is the big Swedish defender Filip Roos, who joins the Senators as a free agent in the offseason and has fit in pretty nicely, all things considered, through 4 games of the season as well.
Yeah, he has, and again, he's a guy with AHL experience, played for the Rockford Ice Hogs the last couple seasons and got into 21 games in the NHL with Chicago after a stint in Sweden and Swedish Junior League, as well as the Swedish Elite League and Swedish Second League. So he's had some experience both in Europe and here in North America, which gives him a great leg up coming in. He's 25 years old. He's from Gothenburg, Sweden, and so he's still on the young side of the ledger, shall we say, for a pro defenseman. So that's good news, and to have him here and to be as steady as he has been so far. David Bell was really liking what he was seeing from him over the course of a few games this season. And, he's one of those guys like a Wyatt Wiley, very similar. He's not going to do anything crazy with the puck. He'll make the simple play, won't make too many mistakes, which is absolutely what you want to see when it comes to defensemen. And, being that he's a stay-at-home guy, it really helps stabilize the back end because it certainly doesn't hurt to have some of those guys that can kind of, lead the young guys along, like Jorian Donovan, like Thomas Tamar, although he's back in the OHL now. But still, it should help him. The 3 games he was up, even though he didn't play, he still learned a lot. So, and it's from guys like Filip Roos, and that he's not quite a veteran just yet, but he certainly will provide that leadership that the Sens need on the back end.
Absolutely, he will. And I think that was one of the transactions we didn't mention in that first segment was that young Thomas Hamar has been sent back to the Ontario Hockey League, the Brantford Bulldogs, where he, I'm sure, will have another solid season of Major Junior. And for a defenseman, that can be pretty important to be able to work on both sides of your game, I think, at the junior level, whereas when you're a young defenseman, you come up to the pro level, it's defense, defense, defense before you can really turn your attention to anything else. So, Filip Roos has been outstanding through a handful of games, and you can see where he fits on the depth chart. Top pair. He's a top pair guy. He's been playing with Max Gannett. That's a nice balance, I think, because Max is, he's responsible as they come, but he does have that little bit of offensive flair to him, whereas you mentioned, Brock, Roos is just going to kind of patrol that blue line. He's going to make sure no pucks or bodies get through, and we've seen that through a handful of games from him in his Sens debut.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can't go too wrong early in the season by playing a simple game, especially when guys are still trying to get their legs up to game speed and get back into mid-season form. So, Filip Roos is going to be a big piece, and also it helps fill in some of the roles left by guys like Jacob Larson and Dylan Hetherington and Lassie Thompson. And Ryan McKinnon as well, who went back and forth on D and forward last year. So that's the key thing is, and every offseason there's always got to be some movement, and there's always got to be new guys coming in. And Filip Roos, as a 25-year-old guy, is going to be a big piece to this team moving forward, even if some fans may not notice him. But like David Bell has said in the past, if you don't notice a defenseman like Filip Roos, that means he's doing a pretty good job because, he's not expected to be a flashy guy. He'll chip in here and there points-wise, of course, but he's not the type of guy that's going to light up the score sheet every single game. So him being defensively responsible is the most important thing for him, and it seems like he's doing that so far very well and making his coach proud. Again, that old hard rock defenseman that Dave Bell was in his career.
And we'll get a thought from Dave Bell on Filip Roos coming up in our next segment, but first let's hear from the big man from Gothenburg. Filip Roos, number 48 of your Belleville Sens, is our first guest this week on Season 3, Episode 6 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Thanks for taking a few minutes, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about the transition to the Senators from the Blackhawks organization. You signed here as a free agent in the offseason. What was it about the Sens that seemed like a good fit for you?
Yeah, I'm just super excited to join this club. The time here has been awesome. A lot of great guys, and I just feel like there's all opportunities to get better here. So super excited for the season, and this season started off pretty well, so we can just keep going on that.
Yeah, 3 points in 4 games is not a bad start at all, and you'll get your first taste of the Battle of Ontario this weekend, which will be exciting. How have you kind of found Belleville and CAA Arena and things? What have the first impressions been like? Maybe how does it compare to what you've been used to in Rockford and Chicago for the last few years?
Yeah, no, everything is great. The city is good. Find my spots to go to, and just the arena and everything here is super well. I mean, just the facility and everything for us is awesome. So yeah, I'm grateful for everything here, and yeah, it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, should be for sure. We're chatting with Sens defenseman Filip Roos. We know you're a steady, kind of stay-at-home defenseman. How do you describe yourself, and maybe who are some of the players that you used to watch growing up and modeling your game?
No, as you said, I mean, I want to be a steady guy there that everyone can think of, like a guy who's making his job, playing good defensively and making good first passes. And yeah, I mean, as the season keeps going, I want to just keep developing everything that I'm pretty good at, and I'm just gonna keep going with that. And yeah, I mean, just how the season will go, I'm just gonna try to be the guy that everyone can just listen to and just look at and just be like, yeah, we know we're gonna get out that guy every night. So yeah, looking forward to the season for sure.
And some young defensemen as well on this team that you can kind of pass some insight along to.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're a great group of guys, and we're learning from each other every day. So yeah, we'll be a good year.
Tell us a bit about Gothenburg. What's your hometown like, and maybe what do you get up to when you are back home when you're not training?
It's a lot of time just spending with family and friends, and just a lot of golf. Actually, we have a pretty good golf in Sweden as well. So just a lot of that, just hang around and just take it easy of like all the hockey and just work out. So yeah.
I was going to ask about, I know the team was out for the golf day this week as well. Did anybody surprise you in their games?
I'd say Petey was not that good. Okay. He was struggling out there. He had a couple of good shots, that I got to admit, but no, it was just fun to be out there, do something else, and just being at the rink. For sure, just get to know everyone a little bit better and just have some fun without the hockey. So no, it was a good day for sure.
That's fellow Swede Oscar Pettersson that Philip's talking about for sure. What are kind of your goals for the season? Obviously, you know, the NHL is within reach, and we've seen a lot of players be able to make that jump from Belleville to Ottawa. But what have you kind of set out in terms of what you'd like to accomplish this year?
I mean, keep developing my play. I want to be a steady and a good defenseman out there. So, I mean, it's going to take some time with a lot of stuff out there, but yeah, keep growing my game. I mean, just want to be a guy that everyone can watch and be feeling that I'm a steady guy. So a lot of stuff that I want to get better of, but yeah, that will take some time for sure. But I'm just happy to be here, and I feel like I have a real good chance here to grow that play and get a better player. So yeah, I'm looking forward.
All right, there's Filip Roos. Really happy to have him along on the squad this year, already making an impact, already fitting in great in the room. Obviously, he's got his countryman, Oscar Pettersson, down there with him as well, a handful of other Europeans in the room too. But, yeah, he's been outstanding and has some NHL experience as well. He's gotten in a handful of games with the Chicago Blackhawks too, so somebody who obviously has that pedigree to reach that next level if he puts together a solid effort down here in Belleville, should they need that help up in Ottawa on the back end.
Yeah, and relying on him when you get the opportunity, like you say, when there's recalls and all that sort of stuff, injuries and sickness and all that, it doesn't hurt to lean on him a little bit when called upon. So the fact that he's able to control himself and control that type of play is outstanding, and he'll definitely be good in wherever he plays on the defensive end, which is exactly what the Sens need. They need that durability, they need that versatility, and certainly if a guy like Max Gannett happens to go up for somebody else, then they know they can feel comfortable in him being in there in the right spot.
It's always nice to have a couple of 6'4" guys on the back end. And it just makes you look a little bit more intimidating, and certainly Filip Roos has added that level to the Belleville Sens group here this season. We'll get a couple more thoughts on Filip Roos. We'll get some thoughts on the upcoming Battle of Ontario and the week as a whole, plus an injury update on goaltender Matt Sogard. We'll check in with head coach Dave Bell when we return. This is the Belleville Sens Podcast, Season 3, Episode 6 on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
Skate into the holiday season with the Stars. Stars on Ice 2024 Holiday Tour with figure skating icon Elvis Stoico, Olympic medalist Caitlin Osmond, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poge, Keegan Messing, Satoko Miyahara, Elash Balde, and more. Stars on Ice, coming to CAA Arena December 8th. Unwrap your tickets at starsonice.ca.
Into our third segment of 4 this week on the Belleville Sens podcast. This is episode number 6 of season 3. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening and toss us a 5-star rating and review. Would be outstanding. We'd really appreciate that. David Foote, Brock Ormond here, and thanks again to Filip Roos for his time after practice. In just a moment or so, we're going to hear from head coach Dave Bell and get his thoughts briefly on how the team responded from the Sunday loss at home and how they are preparing for the Toronto Marlies, the best team in the AHL through 5 games coming up this weekend. And I was interested to ask about response, Brock, because the games on Saturday and Sunday last week finished so differently that it seemed kind of like the guys took a bit of a kick in the teeth on Sunday afternoon against Syracuse when really I think they were right there with the crunch for a lot of that game. Again, the penalties being the issue, but I was curious to find out how the guys were kind of handling a first regulation defeat, that coming on home ice against a rival, all of that. So we'll hear from the coach in just a moment on that. But from what we've seen at practice this week, it seems like the guys have responded well. I think everybody realizes that you're not going to go 72-0. So to be, 4 games in and still have points in 3 of 4 games, that's not so bad.
No, it's really not, and it was bound to happen at some point. And the Syracuse Crunch are a team that have that vengeful mindset, in their brains that hey, this team beat us 7 out of 8 games last year, and that's the thing that we can't forget about. Was Belleville absolutely dominated Syracuse last year, at least in the win column. Games were close, but Belleville certainly had the upper hand. This year, Syracuse already has 2 wins, so that's 1 more they had last year, and it was a good game, yeah, like you say, for 2 periods, and then all of a sudden, the wheels kind of fell off for Belleville, losing Sogard, having Levy come off the bench cold, and then Syracuse just pumping it in. But even still, the game was 3-2 late. Garrett Pilon scoring on that what appeared to be a set play, that dump in from Nicholas Montempallo that landed right at the feet of Pilon.
It must have been, because they scored one like that last year. I feel like it was maybe Ostapchuk who had rushed in. But, that does look like something that is in the playbook for sure. Yeah,
and it seemed like it worked out pretty well there. Pilon bowling in there and putting one through the legs of Matt Tompkins in net. It was a close game, and up until the last few minutes, and then Syracuse scored once more to put the game away essentially, and then iced it with an empty netter. So that 5-2 score line, maybe not indicative of the way the game went on Sunday, but certainly the Sens stayed with Syracuse very well, and I don't think you'll see 7-1 the other way this time for Syracuse, but you just never know. And the Sens definitely now know how Syracuse plays this year. They know what Joel Bouchard's got in his wheelhouse and in his bag of tricks, so it seems like maybe that'll make things a little easier for them going into the game. The next game they play against each other. Yeah, again, Syracuse will see a bunch over the next few weeks. Utica you won't see again until New Year's Eve. Toronto you'll get a little bit scattered in through the next month or so. That includes a game at Scotiabank Arena, the home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, on November 16th. We'll have a season seat member fan bus going to that game. So a lot of divisional play on the way. Plus, at the end of November, our first trip, only trip, I guess, all the way east. We'll go to Bridgeport, etc. In a few weeks. But this weekend, it's the Battle of Ontario, so let's check in with the coach and hear from Dave Bell, get his thoughts on last weekend and how the team is getting ready for the Toronto Marlies this weekend. It's Belleville Sens head coach Dave Bell on episode number 6 of season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Coach, how did you feel about your team's response over the first couple practices this week after the split last weekend?
I think we were okay. I think we got back to workman mentality. Guys worked a little harder, a little bit more urgency in the drills, and also, a little more conviction on making plays or scoring goals. So I've liked it so far.
Are these first few games kind of confirming the strengths that you figured you'd have in your team, or are you learning some new things about your group?
I think we're learning. I think there's some areas that we need to clean up, some areas that I thought we might be better in, but then there's areas where I thought we needed to work on more that they've done a pretty good job of grasping what we're trying to do. So it's a work in progress.
Speaking of trying to grasp, we talked last week about the younger players getting in. Jorian Donovan does play 2 games last weekend. How did you feel he fared in his season debut?
He was fine. I mean, it's tough for defensemen. I always tell defensemen, just try to survive. It's fast. It's a new league. You're playing against men. You have to learn to defend a little bit differently than you did in junior because they're stronger and bigger. So Jorian's fine. Jorian's worked so hard. He's going to be fine. Again, just a young guy trying to find his legs in the league, so he'll be fine.
He's got some pretty good support from some other more veteran blue liners, including Filip Roos, who we're talking to this week. What has he added to this group?
Steady. He's just a steady. I mean, obviously you lose Heater, who was just a steady rock back there, and he's kind of the similar guy. Nothing super flashy, but at the end of the game, you're saying he was just steady and safe, which is what you want in a stay-at-home defenseman. And you know what? He's got more puck skills than I thought he did, and he jumps up in the play more than I thought he did. So that's a pleasant surprise. But for the most part, he's a steady, safe guy.
A few more questions here with Sens head coach Dave Bell. There has been some inquiries about the condition of Matt Sogard after he left the game on the weekend. Is there any update on the big goaltender?
The only update is that he did go get some imaging done yesterday. So doctors are waiting in Ottawa to look at that imaging, and then we'll have a timeline. So I don't know if it's days or weeks. I don't know yet.
Sure. With that aside, I suppose, how else do you prepare for Toronto this weekend? What are some of the areas of focus going up against a team that's got off to a pretty good start this year?
Well, they're super skilled. They got a lot of veteran guys, a lot of really good veteran guys, but their special teams are elite. I think they're perfect on the penalty kill, and their power play is about 28 or 38%. So we've been working on our special teams, but I think our game plan's always been the same against those guys, and to play to our strength and make them play defense because they're pretty good offensively.
And you'll have a handful of players who get in their first AHL Battle of Ontario as well, so always a little extra gear there, I suppose.
No, it should be good. I mean, I don't think anything's carrying over from the playoffs, but one of many this year, so hopefully we get off to the right foot.
And I know you guys were out at Black Bear Ridge for the Team Golf Day this week. How did that go? Were you surprised by anybody's game?
Well, I know I won. My team won, so I'm not really surprised by that. We beat Angus Cruikshank's team, so make sure that gets on the air. But my group was outstanding. We had fun. What a beautiful day. October 22nd or whatever it was, and it was 22 degrees. So it was a great day by everybody.
Yeah, no better place to be on a fall afternoon. Thanks for the time, Coach. Have a good rest of the week.
You too. Thank you.
So there's the coach, I think, kind of as expected and kind of as we said. Naturally not pleased with the result on Sunday, but it's still early in the season. There's lots to go over. There's lots to learn, and still plenty of runway for this team to figure things out and to charge up the standings.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good to have that kind of laneway in front of you to work on some things and sort out what kind of strategies or what kind of plans or systems you have in place going into a big weekend against Toronto. Again, we talk about all these North Division battles. That's what makes the regular season in the AHL so impactful, is because you play the North, so your own division, I should say, so much. Mm-hmm. And especially when it comes down to the late season, Belleville wins a couple of games against Toronto, steals home ice advantage, and then that ends up paying big dividends in a Game 3 winner-take-all situation, and the Sens win it in overtime and move on to the next round, knocking out their arch rivals. So these games certainly matter, and again, it's not for a lack of trying that they weren't able to beat Syracuse, but that's the only team that's really caused them fits so far. And if they can get not just one victory is great, but even two would be absolutely outstanding, and to try and beat the Marlies and hand them their first couple of losses will be absolutely massive, because again, those wins, those points can really add up down the line, which is absolutely where you want to be. And if the Sens want to have any visions of maybe of making the playoffs, maybe winning the division, or going on a bye to avoid that wild card series, beating a team like the Marlies would certainly go a long way.
All right, last thing to take from Dave Bell's interview was the update on Matt Sogard, and it's not much of one other than we know he's hurt, and he's had some imaging done, and he's waiting for the doctors, the medical staff to make the decision and decide where he's at and what the timeline might be. So there is no timeline as of recording day, Wednesday, the 23rd of October, with a game against Toronto 2 days from now. Levi Merelainen is still up in the NHL. Again, as of right now, he could come back at any time. And you have to think that Ryan Bowness and Steve Staios and company are monitoring the waiver wire, taking a look at the free agents who might be around, or whoever might be able to fill a spot. There will have to be some news on the goaltending front in some way, shape, or form heading into the weekend. But for now, we'll just have to stay tuned. And if nothing else, we always talk about the AHL being the league of opportunity, and there could be a massive one to be seized here for young Michael Simpson.
Oh, for sure. And Michael Simpson's a guy that's got that championship experience, and when you're not just a one-time winner, that's great enough, but a two-time OHL champion, been to the Memorial Cup a couple times. He knows how to win in the key moments, and he'll bring that kind of experience and stability, even though he's only in his early 20s. So, not too often that you can say that a junior goaltender has, experience, championship experience, big game experience, all that kind of stuff that we talk about. But to have him in the crease is absolutely massive. And again, he'll have to try and figure out the way AHL shooters shoot and the way they move the puck around, because it's going to be a little quicker than in the OHL. So it's just about how to line yourself up. Positioning is key, and of course he's working with goalie coach Paul Gibson, of course, practice, and I'm sure he'll be the guy that can step in and be that type of guy that can not necessarily steal a game, but just make the saves you need him to make and let your offense do the rest.
And again, that is assuming that Matt Sogard is not good to go this weekend. That is assuming that Levi Merelainen does not get sent back. Either way, Simmer could still get a start, even if Levi does come back. But we'll have to see. We don't have answers there, unfortunately, just yet. But more reason to just pay attention to the Sens social feeds at Belleville Sens, and make sure that you don't miss when we drop the news about what's happening on the goaltending front. We will take one more break, and then we'll get into this weekend's matchups with the Toronto Marlies a little bit deeper when we come back. This is Season 3, Episode 6 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
More than a game, it's tradition. Show your hometown pride. Let the Belleville Senators hear you cheer.
Halliday holding on the right side, looking for a lane. He shoots and scores!
Wednesday, October 30th, 7 p.m. Your Sens play the Providence Bruins, AHL affiliate of the Boston Bruins. Their only visit this season. Celebrate Halloween early with the B-Sens. Make sure you dress up. Prizes for best costumes. It's gonna be scary fun. Full details on ticket options and more at BellevilleSens.com.
Go, Sens, go!
You are listening to the Belleville Sens podcast, season number 3, episode number 6. David Foote and Brock Ormond here with you. Thanks for tagging along again this week. Thanks to Filip Roos and Dave Bell for their time after practice this week. Always nice to get some insight on how the preparations are going, and always nice to meet a new player, introduce a new face to the fans here in Belleville Sens Nation. So thanks to those guys for that. It is a massive weekend, Brock. It's early in the season. It's only games 6 and 7 coming up here for the Belleville Senators, but anytime you take on the Toronto Marlies, it's a big deal. The Battle of Ontario is only gotten, I think, tougher over the 7 seasons that the Belleville Sens have been in the American Hockey League. Obviously, things hit a new level with their playoff matchup last year, and now we're set to renew the whole thing again. But the Toronto Marlies have been outstanding to start the season. 5-0, and they've scored at least 3 goals in all 5 of those games.
Yeah, that's dangerous territory the Belleville Sens are walking into, and of course they have a lot of good fan support around, and they travel well. Marlies and Maple Leafs fans do, so expect to see some good banter back and forth between the Sens fans and the Marlies fans as per usual this weekend. Those are the games that a lot of people love to see, even neutral fans that maybe a fan of another team or something like that will always come out and see these games because they're always so entertaining back and forth. It's always a fight, and I'm sure Marlies fans are just as eager to see Belleville come in to Coca-Cola Coliseum and invade that rink as Belleville fans are with the Marlies coming here. So the rivalry is what makes the North Division as what it is, really. Like let's not sugarcoat it. This has been one of the more intense rivalries over the course of the last few seasons, and it seems like Belleville's going to be getting a good early test, and that's the key thing, is get a team like that, a Marlies team that's on a roll, and get them working hard and put them in a good position to try and succeed. And that's the biggest thing is, you got to beat the best to be the best, and certainly the Belleville Sens have that opportunity to try and hand the Toronto Marlies their first loss of the season, and they get 2 chances to do it as well.
A fresh start for John Gruden, a new season for him after a year behind the bench with the Toronto Marlies, and a lot of the same personnel, frankly, for the Toronto Marlies. It's probably easier to point out some of the newer players who are making an impact, because the usuals, like former Belleville captain Logan Shaw, has 7 assists in 5 games. He leads the Marlies in scoring. Roni Hirvonen, who was with Toronto last season, in their top 3 in scoring. Ryan Turberg, who torched Belleville for, I think, 7 points one night last year, is back again. Alex Steeves, Joe Blandisi, Nick Ambrosisi, these are all Topi Niemela players that Belleville Sens fans are more than familiar with from seeing the Toronto Marlies as many times as we do. But they've also added in some players like former Belleville Senator Cedric Paré, who has had a pretty good start to the season and was making some headlines in the NHL preseason with the Maple Leafs as well. And then they've got Alex Nylander, the brother of William Nylander, who has kind of struggled early in his career to find his footing through some time with Buffalo and Rochester, and then more recently Pittsburgh and Wilkes-Barre. But now he's in the Big Smoke in Toronto, same organization that his brother is in, and boy, is he ever thriving early on here with 5 goals and an assist over 5 games. So point being, the Toronto Marlies have figured it out, which last season didn't seem to be the case.
No, that's right, and that was a bit of an up and down year last year for the Marlies. They ended up finishing beneath the Sens in the standings. They ended up finishing without home ice advantage in that opening round wild card series, if you will, and the Sens ended up making them pay. Won both games here in Belleville, and Toronto won a squeaker in overtime in game number 2, which was a wild one in its own right. But the Marlies certainly have a team that's built for success, and of course they have the resources, as we always note. They have the resources, and they have the team to lean on with the Maple Leafs up in the NHL. So it's always good for them to have a whole bunch of players to lean on and pick out when they need. But Belleville certainly not necessarily an underdog, I would say, but they gave them a good fight last season, got that big victory, and that's something that Sens fans will remember for a long time, that first playoff series win against a team like the Toronto Marlies, a rival. That's incredible stuff. But the Marlies, again, that's the only thing that's different about that is the Marlies have the opportunity to really, push themselves and figure out, what exactly went wrong. They got a few of, like you say, a lot of those returning players back with the likes of Shaw and Turberg and Hirvonen and all those guys that have had some experience in, the AHL, and then Hirvonen in the NHL. So that's the biggest thing, and they're coached really well too. That's the biggest thing. So I'm sure the Marlies will not take Belleville lightly, because they can't, because the Sens are, one thing about the Belleville Sens, are always going to be a hard team to face. They're a hard team to work at, and I'm very interested to see how the Sens match up against the Marlies this time around.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. You get a team that is almost always a high-power offensive juggernaut like the Toronto Marlies against a team like the Belleville Senators that don't score a ton of goals, historically speaking, but they do lock down the defense. They can suffocate you, they can smother you, they can beat you up, they can bruise you, and the Senators are going to have to rely on all of those qualities of their play to try to slow down this Toronto offense that, again, has been just absolutely flying to start the season. The Marlies, as I said, they'd scored at least 3 goals in all 5 of their games so far, and in 4 of those 5, they've scored 4 times. So the goaltending is going to have to be good. There's a question mark around that right now, and the defense is going to have to be solid. And then the Belleville goal scorers are going to have to get it together as well. Angus Cruikshank got on the board finally it took him 3 games. But Angus Cruikshank got on the board last weekend. Zach Ostapchuk, I think, has points in 3 straight. Ditto for the captain, Garrett Pilon. So, the offense is starting to come around, and it's really going to have to be there this weekend if Belleville wants to be competitive. Another thing that will help, full barn on Saturday when the Sens and Marlies come back to Belleville for their rematch, and a full barn of Sens fans would be outstanding here to give Belleville some home ice advantage in round 2 of the Battle of Ontario on Saturday. So Friday night, 7 p.m. at Coca-Cola Coliseum. We're on the air at about 6:50. And then Saturday night, also 7 o'clock here at CAA Arena, also a 6:50 pregame. And tickets at Ticketmaster.ca or the box office here at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. Those hours at BellevilleSens.com. So those are the only 2 games this weekend. We don't have to tee up too much else in terms of what's happening with the Belleville Senators, but we do have some news to kind of break on the show this week, getting out about half an hour ago as of recording time. Should note this is the 23rd of October recording time. But just coming out this morning, the city of Belleville has been selected, and thanks in part to the Belleville Senators and the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, to host a World Junior Championship pre-tournament game between Germany and Sweden on December the 23rd. It's a Monday afternoon. 3 p.m. start here at CAA Arena as those teams get set to head to Ottawa to open the World Junior Hockey Championship on Boxing Day. And actually, Sweden and Czechia will hold their entire pre-tournament camps here at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. They will be here for about 5 or 6 days, starting on the 12th of December, right up to the 23rd. So my math is bad. That's like 9 days. That's like a week, basically. And they'll be here. And I believe they're practicing on the Mackey Insurance Arena and on the Wally Dever Arena. So if you're just wandering through the Wellness Center over the course of that week, you should be able to get a glimpse of these teams getting their workouts in, which is kind of neat. And then, of course, they'll be here on the ice showcasing their skills on December 23rd at 3 p.m., which is super, super exciting to have even more high-caliber hockey coming to the Bay of Quinte region.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the first time the World Juniors held in Ottawa back in 2009, I believe there was a game held here back when the CAA Arena used to be the Yardman Arena, if I'm not mistaken, back in 09, so or 08, I guess it would have been. So that's outstanding stuff, and to have that kind of caliber event here is incredible. And of course, I'm sure there'll be people that will look to get their hockey fix again before the World Juniors start, and of course, it's not very far away either. You can go 2.5 hours down the way east to Ottawa and take in some of the action. It's going to be busy, and it's going to be exciting, and nice to see two pretty competitive countries too, Sweden and Germany, that should engage in a pretty good battle. And I'll be excited to see some of the training camp as well with Sweden. So having a home base here, again, it not only benefits the Sens organization having the facilities and the city get use out of it, but also it helps get more tourism here and brings a bunch of people that normally wouldn't maybe come down this way if they didn't have to. They come here and they compete, and that's outstanding stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing the pre-tournament game as well as the training camps and see how it all shakes down.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. Tickets for that game on December the 23rd will go on sale via Ticketmaster this Friday. That's October 25th at 10 a.m., so you can just head to Ticketmaster and find those. If you're a Belleville Sens season seat member, first of all, thank you. And you'll be able to get a pre-sale access code for these tickets for this pre-tournament game. You should be getting some information directly from our ticketing department to your inbox. So if you're a season seat member with the Belleville Senators, keep an eye on your inbox for information on the pre-sale that's set to launch on Thursday, October 24th at 10 a.m. If you don't get that email this afternoon, hopefully you're listening to the show today, but make sure to contact your ticket rep and find out how to get your seats if you miss out on that pre-sale code. It's going to be super exciting, December the 23rd. Here at CAA Arena. Stars on Ice also here at CAA Arena on December the 8th, and tickets for that are also available right now at starsonice.ca. So make sure to come check out some high-caliber entertainment that is not the Belleville Senators, but still happening here at CAA Arena. It's awesome to be able to partner with the Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board and these other organizations to bring these events super, super exciting. So please check those out. All the info you need at bellevillesens.com. And, we'd love to see you here for either of those events. We'd also love to see you here for Saturday night's Battle of Ontario Round 2, Belleville and Toronto. Again, Ticketmaster.ca or BellevilleSens.com for box office hours and info on group experiences, premium seating, and more. The atmosphere, as Brock said off the top, was outstanding last weekend. We're trying to recreate that again here against a tough opponent on Saturday night.
Yes, absolutely, and why not come out and support your Belleville Sens in a kind of a game like that? And I'm sure you take the atmosphere from a home opener and you multiply that tenfold with all those rabid Leafs fans and also the rabid Sens fans too, which I got to say, last year's playoff series in particular was outstanding. The Sens fans out-cheered, I would say, the Toronto Marlies fans, which was awesome, and I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see it carried over into this year, and again, the Sens have the ability to do something special again. So it all starts here against Toronto, and I mean, if nothing else, you may get to see a first win against the Toronto Marlies this season, or first team to beat them. So that could be somewhat of a historic thing for this season.
It will be fun either way. Friday night at Coca-Cola Coliseum if you can make your way down there. If not, again, we're on at 6:50 on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network for Deerhaven Farm and Garden and AHL TV on Flow Hockey. Same broadcast details for Saturday night against Toronto, but of course we'd much rather have you in the building. And if you do come to the game Saturday, bring your FM receiver and you can still hear the broadcast on 88.1 FM here inside the arena. That'll do it for us on episode 6 of Season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Thanks again to Dave Bell and to Filip Roos and to you for tuning in this week. Don't forget to rate and review. For Brock Ormond, David Foote, thanking you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week on episode 7 of the Belleville Sens podcast when we recap this first Battle of Ontario of 2024-25. Enjoy the games this weekend. Talk to you next week.